Okay, so I think we're ready to start our event. So hi everyone, as I said, we're really excited to have you here today for our Circular Jobs event. We'll first have our input session in which our speakers will give a 10-minute presentation about their field. We have 4 specialist speakers here for you today. We have Esther Goodwin-Brown, the Partnerships Manager of Circular Jobs Initiative at Circle Economy. We have Sebastian Daus, the founder of Fix First. We have Frida Soling, the CEO of NochMall, and Dina Padalinka, the founder of Circular Berlin. So I'm going to hand over to Esther from Circle Economy for our first presentation. So over to you, Esther.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope you can see my screen and hear me well. So thank you so much, the Circular Berlin team, for inviting me to speak today. My name's Esther Goodwin-Brown and I am the Partnerships Manager of the Circular Jobs Initiative at Circular Economy, as Jess says. And so a little background on Circular Economy. We are an impact organisation, so a social enterprise, and we're based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, but we work very much internationally with a lot of work in Northern Europe. And our ambition across the organisation is to accelerate the transition to the circular economy by creating really practical and scalable solutions. And we do that through a few focus areas. We have a long-running cities program where we work with city stakeholders to look at what the opportunities are for the circular economy. We have a textiles program, a program that works with designers and brands and finance. And then most recently, the Circular Jobs Initiative, which is my area. And so our high-level aim of the Circular Jobs Initiative is to make sure that the transition to the circular economy is positive for work and for workers. So this is really about looking at the social impacts of the circular economy, thinking about what type of job opportunities it creates, who these opportunities are available to, and what the impact are on different groups and different groups of people as different sectors transition and scopes change. And so I thought it would be helpful to begin with what we at Circular Economy mean when we say circular jobs, as there are different definitions and there are long-standing understanding of what green jobs are, but this circular jobs we see as quite different. So to understand circular jobs, we use our 7 key elements framework. And this is the framework that we developed at Circular Economy to map the strategies that any city or business might use in order to transition to the circular economy. So in light blue are the strategies which we call core circular strategies. So they're the more traditional areas of the circular economy in recycling, resource management and renewable energy. And in dark blue, these are enabling strategies. So working with new design practices, utilizing digital technology and platforms, collaborating and new business models. And so it's with this framework that we built our definition of circular jobs. So when we talk about circular jobs, we categorize them across 3 levels. So we have our core and our enabling circular jobs, which, as you might have guessed, contribute directly to the strategies I mentioned on the slide before. But then we also take it one step further by looking at the jobs which indirectly support those strategies. So indirect circular jobs, which are just as important to making sure that the elements of the circular economy are taken up. So if we're thinking about indirectly circular jobs, this could mean a role in marketing, in education, or in finance and investment. And so here's a few examples of the core and enabling jobs that I was referring to. So you see the repair operative, you also see the facility manager that might be using building information models to understand the different materials there are in the different buildings that they manage, the procurement professional within a local authority or a national ministry, looking at bringing in different legislation and procuring services that adhere to the circular economy, and then architects utilizing design strategies to make sure that buildings are prepared for deconstruction rather than demolition, and that utilize secondary materials where possible. So that's a few examples. And what we've done at Circular Economy is we've translated this definition of circular jobs into a method for measuring and monitoring the number of circular jobs in any city, region, or country. And so I've just included the link here so that participants can click around the monitor when you get a chance and look at the countries and regions we currently have on the monitor. At the moment, there is Amsterdam, the Netherlands and Belgium. We have a region in the UK, in Cornwall, and as of next week, we'll have Scotland and New York City. So please do click around and see how the tool works. And you can check out several of the reports that we've produced based on these findings that look into the different strategies and how jobs are already relating to them in these different countries. And so through the lens of 3 focus areas at Circular Jobs Initiative that we try and approach this quite big aim of ensuring that the circular economy has positive social impacts for workers. And with those different focus areas, we see several opportunities and challenges. So the first area that we look at is the inclusivity of the labour market. So how can we ensure that the job opportunities that the circular economy does create are inclusive, that they're accessible to the widest range of people with the widest range of skill sets and needs, and that where possible, it creates opportunities for people that may be currently out of work or distant for the labour market for various reasons. And in terms of looking at local economies like a city like Berlin, how best to integrate the social and the circular economy to make sure that we can build on long-standing expertise in terms of workforce integration that lots of these organisations hold. The second is around the quality of jobs in the circular economy. And this can be seen as a bit of a challenge because the jobs that we typically associate with the circular economy can be very physically demanding, labour intensive. When we think about jobs in resource management, there's often a level of stigma attached to these jobs. So we see it as incredibly important to try and improve the quality of these jobs and to revalue these jobs that really are core to keeping the circular economy running, and make sure that current workers are safeguarded as sectors transition, and that we have frameworks in place in order to uphold the quality of those jobs. And then the third area is skilling the workforce. So very relevant to the topic today is, what type of skills are needed for different circular economy jobs, and what are the training pathways that might be needed to make sure that people coming into the labour market or currently in work can develop those right skills. One of the challenges that we see is that because of some of the hesitance or ambiguity around what skills are going to be needed in 10 to 20 to 40 years, this is causing some hesitance on the side of businesses and is hampering innovation. So it's really about trying to identify what are the important transferable skills, what skills do people need currently, and making sure that we've got the right skills available in the labour market, but the right training pathways so that everyone can take up those jobs when they become available. And I just wanted to lastly finish on a point around resilience. This is a term that you see discussed a lot alongside the circular economy. And we've done a recent piece of research trying to really unpick what the relationship is between resilience and the circular economy and the labour market. And we obviously see that currently there is a huge window of opportunity to try and learn from the mistakes in our current labour market and economy by implementing the circular economy and resilience strategies into green recovery and local initiatives in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the need to develop these regional and national reskilling programs, so looking at the skills that are available within cities and regions in order to match people to jobs as sectors transition, but also to be careful that we promote local circular economies that are resilient through shorter supply chains and resource sharing, whilst also reducing the negative impacts on supply chains and workers in other countries. So really thinking through what is the impact of shortening our supply chains and bringing certain value chains circular on workers in other continents that might currently rely on those parts of the value chain for their livelihoods. And then the final point is around the revaluation of skills and workers, as I mentioned earlier. And here I use the example of British Vogue. It's rare that I use Vogue magazine in a presentation, but this was a really nice example in the midst of the pandemic of them choosing to put frontline workers on the front of their magazine. And it was part of this national mood and in really international mood around the valuation of key workers on the front line, including transport workers, supermarket assistants and nurses. And we also are seeing a similar revaluation of the workers that uphold the circular economy, the waste pickers and waste management teams that were still out on our streets collecting our rubbish and taking them to recycling centres in the midst of everything that was happening, and those that were upholding our food systems and then making all of that happen. So yeah, just finishing on some opportunities as well as some of the challenges and the issues that need to be taken into account. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Esther. Yeah, it's not often that you have Vogue magazine shown in circular economy talks. So thank you so much for your insightful presentation. The next speaker we will have is Sebastian from Fix First. So over to you, Sebastian.
So thank you very much for having me. Also, hi there for everybody who is watching either in front of the screen or somewhere else listening on the smartphone. And yes, so I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Sebastian. I'm one of the founders at Fix First, and I have divided my talk into 3 parts. So I'm quickly going to talk about why circular. I think most of you know that already, but then I'm going to talk quickly about Fix First. So you know what you really are doing there and what is the space basically about, going a bit more in detail there as well. And then we're going to cover the specific job part as well. So yeah, as I mentioned already, hi, my name is Sebastian and one of the co-founders at Fix First, based in Berlin, also the factory. So if you're there, I'm happy to catch up anytime. And for me personally, how my journey started was when I was working with different companies, trying to have an impact as well, and finally looking to starting my own company, or starting with the idea. I always want to have an impact. And what we stumbled about is the whole area or dimension or world of circular economy, if you want to call it that way. And we really try to embed that into what we do. So we do now with Fix First, which is where we want to create a world where fixing comes first, which is for us more of a mindset. And our mission is really to accelerate it, transition towards it. But why do we actually need to do that? I think, as most of you know, the concept of the Earth Overshoot Day, I think this is about one generation, right? If I look into my parents, I think they have been born a bit earlier than that, but it's pretty close. And if you look into Germany, you could say, okay, that has been more or less okay, quite unbalanced already, right? But somehow we managed, this is a bit provocative going to US standards. I think now in Germany, Europe, I think it's about 3 euros or 3.5 or something like this. But we massively managed to consume too much of the resources. And what we are focusing on here with, or right now with Fix First, is the part of the electronic waste. So I think globally it's about 15 million tons. The bad news is it's 80% or so end up in landfill right now. And the even worse news is that it's going to be, it's prognosed to double by 2050. And we said, okay, what can you do about this, right? So, and there's this concept of circular economy, which you already know, which where one part of that is really keeping products in use, designing out waste, and also regenerating the natural systems where we don't have to have those kind of landscapes, obviously as well. But it's not only about keeping the materials and everything in flow. It also can really contribute towards our climate goals and really help us reduce the carbon emissions as well. On the one side, but also it's a super big opportunity if you just look on the economic opportunity that's out there. And with Fix First, we then basically said, okay, if you look into circular economy, one of the principles is keeping products and materials in use. And what's super interesting is that, okay, if you have an issue with the product, right? So for us, we now focus on large appliances. So if you think about washing machines, fridges, anything that's hard and heavy that you can't really carry. And there's a lot of friction involved where I'm going to into a second. So you understand why we're actually doing this. well, let's say you have an issue there, and what you really realize is that a lot of people actually start looking for a repair. So kind of going towards a more sustainable option to some extent. But still then the question is, okay, how come the expectations of waste is going to double, and why is there this issue? And then the problem that we realized is it's a little bit like this. So if you look into the service experience of consumers in that space particularly, it's really bad. So just glimpsing here at the customer rating at manufacturers, there's some independent testing institutes that had very, very poor results for those as well. There's now a movement that says the right to repair, that basically asks for or demands the right of consumers to being able to repair their products themselves. So having all the information, tools, and the design of products in place to actually do that. And there's really this image of planned obsolescence, right? This idea that products are designed to break earlier and earlier. And now even the European Commission is stepping in with a new regulation, which is the Eco Design Directive, which has now put new standards in place towards spare parts access, the right information, and also new design guidelines so product can be more repairable, which we found super interesting, of course, and it's going to be very helpful in the future as well. And if you look into large appliances in particular, we realized, okay, that actually the service barrier is one of the barriers towards circularity. To make it very practical, if you have a washing machine that's broken and you want to get a service, you're always competing with the Amazon Prime customer expectation that's out there in the market, meaning the alternative to getting something repaired, waiting up to 2 weeks to just get an appointment and those kind of things. The alternative is just going to Amazon, buying a new one. It's probably going to be there the next day. So this is it's a lot of tension there in the market. And just going to put this down. And so what you see then in the market is, okay, there's a very poor discovery of the service, but finding someone is very hard. Browsing to all the content and information there, often the barrier is very high. So sometimes if you want to have somebody coming to your place doing the inspection, just to let you know what the issue is, it can cost up to 150 euros, which is very high if you think about average prices, which might be around 500 euros for appliance. There's a lot of more up the market, but still it's a very, very hard choice that you have to do. And from today, you're basically used to have every service digital, everything is easy to book. Think about Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, all the services that had a great customer experience. But if you go to repair world, it's more like, it feels like 10, maybe 20 years back in a lot of cases. So you only can call the people, which is obviously something people not expect today. And we said, okay, what can we do differently there? And so what we do want to do with Fixers is to help people make the better choice upfront and really enable the ecosystem of repair service providers that's already there in the market. So what we do is we do an automated error analysis upfront. So we tell you what can you do if you have an issue by yourself, what is the next best option? So is that a video inspection? Is it somebody coming to your place? Or maybe you just have to tweak one or two little things. So just do a bit of cleaning and maintenance, and then the problem is already gone. And we auto do seamless. So basically the service experience that I just described, we want to put into our product, and we only work with qualified experts as well. But at core, what we are really building then is more or less a platform around the repair service providers, because what we realized is if you look into everyone who is providing a repair service in the market, there's still some potential for digitization, if you want to call it that way. And we're trying to leverage that by building a platform around this. So anything from pre-qualifying customer requests, helping customers making better decision up front. That also helps the service providers in the end, and really then integrating that into kind of an operating system that helps them managing the whole process flow from when somebody sends a request up to the technician is coming and going to the customer side as well. And by doing it, we really build our foundation around those 3 pillars. Just to touch on the 3 aspects of that. So there's obviously the economic advantage for consumers. So it's a lot cheaper per household. I think this number of 150 euros is taken from a study that was also done by the European Commission. The other one on the social side is you can also include older technicians, for instance. So in the market, there's this huge shortage of finding the right people, which is really, really challenging. They get older and older. And using remote services and video inspections, they basically can now work as well and also more flexible, and they don't have to carry a washing machine 3 or 4 floors down in the city. And the final part is obviously the environmental, which can save a lot of water consumption, a lot of CO2 as well, which is the more obvious one here. All right, so, and now I'm going to talk quickly about why jobs. So what fascinates us, obviously, and what we are focusing on a lot of the fixtures is the potential by that's going to be there by applying AI. There was a study by the MacArthur Foundation at Google, basically says, okay, there's a new market potential, I think of 76 billion per year from 2030, by just looking into AI and really connecting to the information that's already there. So for us, it means taking the information that customers already have and helping making a better assessment upfront and learning more and more about the errors and the better recommendations that you can basically do to help both consumers and technicians in the market as well. Why am I talking about the market? Because if there's a market opportunity, then basically jobs will be created as well. Another study that was interesting to look into is one that's pretty recent actually by BCG. There they looked into the potential for circular economy, especially in Germany. And they said, okay, it's going to be 200 billion in the next years, which is huge, which is very massive. And I think in another part of it, I say it's about 5% of the total GDP of Germany as well. And if you look here to the charts without going into too much detail, but it basically is like 2 scenarios, right? So one, where you say, okay, this bar moves up just a little bit in the one scenario, and then a lot in the other one. And the difference here is really about one focusing on the existing growth, and the other one is willing to go into a very circular economy there, where we really want to accelerate that growth with all the initiatives that are happening in Germany or in the European Commission level with the Green Deal and all those kind of topics. And another study showed how they can play out in the job world. So this was the REP study, if you want to look into that. And then they also have kind of 2 job creation scenarios where they say, okay, if you look into the existing growth, you have about 1.2 million jobs that can be created by 2030 in Europe. And but if you look in more to the more accelerated scenario, that's about 3 million more additional jobs. So the bottom line there, it's a really huge opportunity, especially for Europe on a larger scale. What does it really mean for repair? If you think about repair, starting at the beginning, you have something that you push into a market, right? So you buy a product that's out there in the market. And what I found interesting was this analysis that's done by iFixit. They provide good repair tutorials, mostly for smartphones and smaller appliances in the DIY space. And as I mentioned earlier, we have how many? I think 80% going to landfill. That creates like 1 job for 1,000 tons of electronics. Recycling, which a lot of our current strategies are focusing on, if you look into policies, about 15, but repair has the potential to create about 200 jobs, and also really can help us keeping the products in use longer, which reduces especially carbon emissions. If you think about the production processes as well. I think for Apple, if they produce a product, I think the highest part, I think 60 or 70% are caused due to the production of the process. So meaning if you just stretch it out a little bit, they can have a really, really big impact there as well. And then what I found is interesting that Esther mentioned actually is this impact of direct and indirect jobs. So with direct, this is really looking to people repairing things, actually doing the work. And I was coming back from a visit from a service company, I think 2 weeks ago. They have about 200 employees. And they're always saying, or the CEO is saying, repair is only one part of the job. And I think like 30% is what he mentioned. The other one is really the indirect things that you need to make it happen. That's logistics, that's warehousing, and IT, all the aspects to actually make that work. So there's a lot of indirect or even more indirect opportunity as well. And what is also interesting, if you look into the German market for repair, which electronics being the largest share there, there's an expected growth chart that I put there very motivatedly, which has developed based off the new eco design directive that I mentioned. There was also a study done by the European Commission that looked into different scenarios where they basically found, okay, there's a potential that this market, because of those new measures that we're going to take, is to grow by up to 20 additional %, adding up to the existing growth, which we found super interesting. And last but not least, for how they can look like, if you think about repair, it's often very technical, and it's very, you maybe have been to a repair cafe and you're just sitting there and figuring out technical things. But the message I want to send also is that on the business side, it's really possible to combine like the business and the business side, and also the impact side, and to make it cool. One example is Patagonia. If you haven't heard, they also provide lifetime repairs for their products. And this is a really cool example that I found how they advertise it is in skiing areas when you could still do skiing. And the merchant can just go and basically say, hey, here was an issue. They're just going to fix it for you. And it's just a very different approach that I found interesting to share with you guys. So that's already it from my side. Yeah, and last but not least, so speaking of circular jobs, we are also looking for talented people who have a passion for circular economy and changing something in that area. So feel free to check our website. If there's nothing yet that you find, feel free to contact me or connect on LinkedIn. And yeah, that's already it. Thank you very much. Happy to take your questions later.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. And of course, we'll include all the links to everyone's web pages later. So without further ado, I will pass over to Frida. Maybe not. There he is. Hi, Frida. So we'll pass over to you. This is Frida, the CEO of NochMall.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, at the moment we are sitting here in the NochMall. It's a new department store for used goods. It was opened 6 weeks ago, and it is for us a new job, and because the BSR, it's Berlin City Cleaning Services. It's a public company for waste collection, waste management, and street cleaning. So we are not salesmen. So for us it's really a great thing to open this store. So I tried the next slide. I hope I get it. So okay, now why did we open this as a waste company, this store for reused goods? Yes, I think one thing is because we are a public company, and in the state of Berlin, since some years we have a government with a green red government, or red government, and they have a zero waste strategy, and for them it's important that we have some projects which are realized to show the citizens it's possible to avoid waste and to reuse waste. And so the NochMall, it's a showcase project for reuse. And what is our goal? Our goals are that we sell a lot of products of reused goods to prices so that it's also possible for people who have not so much money to buy the things. That's one thing, but we also want to be a department store for everybody. So that's not so easy. We want to be a department store for people with a sustainable awareness, but also just for I say normal people from Berlin. So that's what we try. And because we think it's not a good sign if only the people who have no money have to go and buy secondhand things, they are a little bit shy that maybe somebody will see them, that they don't have new things. So we want to change the image of reused goods. And we want to be also a place where things are repaired, and where we have upcycling workshops and education program, especially also for children. And we want also to give companies who have some like startups who have new products, upcycling products, that they get a place maybe where they can show and sell new products, like a pop-up store, so that they can make some tests. So we work together now, 6 weeks with a startup called Mood, and they tried to sell here t-shirts made from bad line, but it didn't work so good because they are much more expensive, this upcycling things, than the reused t-shirts. So they want to sell their t-shirts for, I think, 49 euros, and the reused t-shirts, the people have only to pay 1 or 2 euros. So that's a problem. But we don't know exactly if it can work to sell cheap and expensive things in one store, but we want to try. So and another thing is sure environmental things. So that we want to avoid waste, and we want to avoid CO2. I think that's very important, sure. And we also want to create new jobs. So we have now around 16 jobs here, and soon I think we will have 20. And it's a new jobs. It's not jobs from the BSR. It's really new jobs, because the NochMall, it's a subsidiary from the BSR, and it works like a startup. So everything is new. When we start, we didn't have anything, not a pencil and nothing. So we just start by 0. So the location, I can show you where we are now. It's near to the airport Tegel, and there's getting a new quarter called Schumacher Quarter. And on the left of the slide, you can see the NochMall. So it's not a place which is hip. It's called Reinickendorf. It's a part of Berlin, and it's not so easy to get people from all around to this place. But we want to try, because I think it's also good if we have a place like this, not where in a hip place, but also in a place where just, I mean, the typical Berlin people live. So here's some impressions of the NochMall. That's when we opened it at the first day. There were a lot of people there, and you can see we tried to have a pop-up store which is different from some of this. I see social reuse places, which are sometimes a little bit very crowded, and everything it's very full, and it's so we wanted to be clean and have a lot of place and friendly, and so that's what we try. And here you can see some more pictures. So we try to make a special image so that the people like to go to this place. And because we're talking about jobs in circular economy, I want to say something about the team. For us, it was important that we are friendly. I think it's really important. So the customers don't come again if we are not friendly. So I think the most important things is that we are friendly. If we want to be the friendliest department shop of Berlin, we try, and also environmental friendly. So both. And we also want to give people a chance, who have had maybe before some problems, and to give them a new chance just to work here. And that's, I think, for us very important. And we want people who likes who loves to make new things. So and because we are at the start of a new project, so everyone has a chance to come with new ideas and to say what he wants. So that's why our team is a different kind of jobs. So we have also one actor and globetrotters, people who like to travel, and so that's very different. So that's about our team. And to the staff, at first we started with the management board, sure. I work at the BSR, Berliner Stadtreinigung, as an innovation manager. And so together with a colleague, we started this project last year. And at first we have to get some money, because as I told, we are owned by the state of Berlin. So we need money and from this, from our company, but we need the go from the state, because that's important. So, and my job at the beginning was just to make this idea and this concept and financing. And then we have to look for a place, for the NochMall. property search, and it's not so easy in Berlin. I think everybody knows, because it's very expensive. So I think 9 months we were looking for a place, and until we find a place here in, I think, April, here in Reinickendorf. I think it's a good place because there are a lot of shops around. So we hope that the people just when they look for other things, they maybe find the NochMall and come inside. And we had to think about the interior design. That's also very important because there was nothing inside. So we had to work together with this designer. And yeah, my job's also networking, communication, event management, and so on. And so at the beginning I was alone, and then we said, okay, we need something like an operation manager. And so yeah, we tried online to find somebody, and we said we want to have somebody with sustainable awareness. And so we write that we're searching somebody who has used at least 4 of the following words in the last 3 months. This was words like save the world and climate protection and do good things and less is more and zero waste and environmental education and so on. But very fast we understand that it's not so important if you have a sustainable awareness. We talked to some people who said, oh, so such a cool project, we want to work there. And then we told them, yeah, you have to work at Saturday. And then they said, oh no, then it's not so important if it's sustainable, if we have to work Saturday. So, and then the next woman we talked, she says also such a cool, hip and sustainable project. Then we say, oh, it's in Reinickendorf, yeah? And then they said, oh, Reinickendorf, no, that's too far. Then I have to travel 30 minutes from my home. That's not possible. And so on. It was really like this, yeah? And so we understand, no, we need somebody who is really tough and somebody who knows how to sell things. It's really maybe hard, but I think, yeah, so we have to change our mind. I mean, it doesn't help if somebody likes to help, to the climate and so on. If he don't know how to operate a department store. So that's why we're happy now to get Melanie, who worked before at somebody who sold things at Saturn, and she knows the business. I think it's really important. I mean, so that's what I learned. And we thought also, do we need a deputy operations manager? And we thought, no, we don't want somebody. We want to give the other people who work for our company the chance to get this job maybe later, so that they can develop and get other jobs. So we're a very small team, as I told you. We have some other jobs. Very important, sure, is to have some people who sales the things, and for the cash desk, we need somebody in the storage and filling the shelves, and we need somebody for transportation, because we have 1 truck, and we get our stuff, not our stuff, our goods from 2 recycling depots, and by the things the citizens just bring to the NochMall. So it's just really normal jobs, and a lot of people wants to make things which are very sustainable and social media and so on. And we say, oh no, we need somebody who cleans the cups and so on, because we don't want that they are dirty when we get them from the citizens and so on. So we have a lot of, I say, stupid jobs or not very interesting jobs, but we need these people, and we don't have the money to say, oh, we have 1 or 2 people who likes to be sustainable, but we can't pay them. So that's a problem, because we have to get the money to pay the rent and to pay the people. So that's the problem. And what else on jobs we need? We don't have at the moment. We need somebody for the secretariat. We need an assistant for Melanie, and we need somebody for event organization, because at the moment I do it, and maybe some craftsmen like carpenters and so on. and somebody we have some auctions, we need an auctioneer. At the moment, somebody who works at the storage is doing it. And maybe later on we can get some more jobs, like somebody for our repair cafe, somebody who knows how to repair things, or a bicycle mechanic for bicycles, or a fashion designer for upcycling things, or a window dresser, and so on. But we can't pay everybody, so we need people who have the know-how how to do it. So we have somebody, one guy in our storage, he has been former window dresser, so he knows how to do it. And for the transport, we have one guy, he's also an electrician. And so it's good if you have somebody who knows a lot of things. So we have to organize everything by ourselves. And we're also thinking about some jobs you can think, maybe it's better if that you do it with external companies or external people, like accounting or cleaning or testing electrical appliance, and also social media and so on. So because if you do all the things with your own people, it's still getting too expensive. So so at the moment we're thinking, okay, we'll do it not with our own people. So that's a better way. Yeah, so that was a short, I'm sorry, it was very short what I have to say. We just hope that you will come to the NochMall, and yeah, that's what I can say to the jobs in circular economy. To finish my presentation, I just can say we don't have special jobs for circular economy. We just need normal jobs like in every other department store. I mean, that's all what I can say. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you, Frida. And I can vouch for the fact that it's a very nice place to be and everyone is very friendly. And it doesn't take that long to get there on the U-Bahn. So if you're a Berlin resident, you should make the effort
Yeah,
to
okay.
come. It's
Thank you.
definitely worth it. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So now we'll pass on to our last speaker, Dina from Circular Berlin. So over to you, Dina.
All right. So I'm the last one who also will speak today. And then we're going to move to the panel discussion. Thanks a lot, Frida, for the very interesting presentation before, because I think it's actually connected very well with what we also experience in hands-on work with the circular economy. So I think I catch the same level of understanding on that. And as I said already in the beginning, I will also start a little bit with introduction to Circular Berlin, and mainly to the main fact that we are not a business, we are not a profit association. And in this case, we're also actually the one who try to provide jobs in the sector here in Berlin, however, not from the business perspective, but as a non-profit. So that's why I'm asked quite often why we are actually non-profit, why we're not an agency or not a consulting that actually can operate on that. There were several reasons behind that, even though that we are quite young association. We started our development since end of 2018. But we decided to have this particular status because firstly, we believe in the aim of promotion of knowledge circular economy, bringing it further, and we didn't want to go in the competition with any other services which are already there, because this status allows us to speak freely about this topic without any particular NDAs with the clients if it's needed somehow, for example, from consultancy. And that's how we believe it actually the fastest way to promote this knowledge around, so rather than going in a business field per se. However, I do believe that in the circular economy still remains one of the main words. So economy is a system, which is not only about business, but it's also about how our production and consumption services are actually regulated and created and adjusted for the system. So, and we see our role in this case to make sure that the economy actually make this path to circular economy with the faster term rather than just creating extra service on that. And when we sat together with the team, and I will also mention who is the team behind now, we also talk about our values, because I think it's important, especially for NGO in this case, to understand who we are and how we can actually create the community around us. So we talked about ourselves, we talked what actually should unite us, and this is the values which we and the team come up last year. And we agreed on the point that we should be optimists about the future. It doesn't make sense to get into circular economy if you are thinking only about negative future. So we actually want to create positive change, and that's what we are here. We also strive for practical approach. So we define ourselves as a practitioners. And in our case, I think for circular economy, there is no, I mean, I'm keep on repeating, there is no right or wrong way to do it. There is no right or wrong way to approach it. So it's actually the best way to try it. So today we, for example, first time tried our live streaming from the NochMall because we decided we also wanted to use this ground together and see how it's going to work, what we learned from that. So this is kind of little step of practical approaches and combining the formats. We're also very open. This also should be in our nature of our organization, what it means, because I think through open source and open sharing, this is the best way how you can actually accelerate knowledge sharing. So it was, we constantly repeating, having the questions, how we've done this and that, and how can we sometimes receive also the questions from other locations in Germany, how they can have as their first chapter with Circular City. And I believe that in our way, we can only share our knowledge with them, but they actually should find their own local ground to scale it up and operate on that. We also believe that we're stronger together. That's why we are an association, and that's why we encourage people who are interested in the topic to join us and to move forward together. For one thing, that is sometimes the topic could be quite overwhelming and you don't know where to start. So joining us, or that's how we started working together from perspective that you are not alone and you can make change only if you operate jointly, but it also not only with regards to individuals, but it's also with regards to other partners with whom we try to cooperate. So for example, that's today we also in NochMall, and we wanted to showcase this beautiful place together with Frida, who had this talk previously. And I think it's a beautiful way that actually when you see you feel the synergy when you work together. And I think it's actually what is so valuable about circular economy. One very important point here, that despite the fact that we are quite an international team, we actually set the boundaries. It's still in Berlin what we work and where we work, because I think this is where we can impact the change, and that's where we can start introduce our work and knowledge and to hope to have impact on that. This is the values which we have in an organization, and I think it's partly defined also how we work together, at least within our organization. So with this type of framework, what we have done, I already mentioned briefly that we knowledge building organization, community building organization, and we try to bring education forward. But what it means, like in our very short time of work, we still already managed to reach through social media channels or different communication by end of 2018, more than 30,000 people, which I think is quite impressive. I believe it's not only in Berlin, because we are still quite international in our communication. And we empowered local organization here in Berlin to step further, and we have a digital map where you can explore on the website, where more than 170 organizations, not only business-wide, but also with projects or other non-for-profit organizations that are already listed in Berlin. They operate here locally. So it's not necessarily always connected with the job creation, but it's very much connected with the topic of given first steps to understand circular economy, so in a practical way. That's what actually we already try to visualize for others. We also have many events where we try to manage to reach, in the last years, to reach up to 700 people. But this numbers, it's not what I want to say that how well we operate. It's mainly to say that all these achievable deliverables or milestones which we managed to do to reach by end of 2019 were actually done a lot with voluntary support. And this is, I think, what is very important to highlight how circular economy right now operates, especially in Berlin. It's a lot around collective power. It's a lot based on enthusiasm and belief in it. And that's what I think it's, I mean, I believe that at least our case in this case also could be named as a positive example, how you can multiply the power of enthusiast, activist, and volunteer work. As you can see, we actually started with only me and one colleague of mine. By end of 2017, we reached 2019 with the team members up to 12 people, and now we are around 20 people by the middle of 2020. And what is also very interesting to mention here, I keep receiving a lot of requests to join us and actually to make this first step towards circular economy. So I find that sometimes, of course, we can't accept everyone just in terms of operational work, because sometimes we just don't have that work which people search for. But I find it's interesting to see that even if we never advertised our work or never tried to promote us as a employer in the circular economy sector, there is still demand on that. So people actually want to have a first experience in this area. People want to understand how to work on it. And I think it's already a good sign to see that, okay, of course, there is also mainly people who are searching for first career experience. They are approaching us for the internships of some practical knowledge sharing, gathering, sorry. But I think for me, it's already a sign of change that a young generation, they're actually interested in this topic. They actually would like to gather this experience. And even though that maybe sometimes they're not sure where they can go further with that, they actually still want to spend their time, even if we say them could be voluntary involvement, and we can't ensure you right now further employment in this. So this is for me quite a positive learning out of these years. But how does it work? So in general, it's really also highlighted, it's not necessarily the key, to understand circular economy is not the first factor which opens your doors for the circular economy work. I mean, right now I notice that the most important is actually cross-disciplinary aspects. And we are here with Circular Berlin, we're a very cross-disciplinary team with diverse background. However, it's always important, of course, to have a strong overall objectives. It's important to communicate where we are going further and what we approach, even if we are coming from very diverse backgrounds. It's also really important to have an impact-driven attitude. That's why I think we also introduce the voluntary work in this case, because sometimes it's important to understand that circular economy is still a new field and it's still not so easy to find, I would say, the most fitting work and engagement in this. But if you are quite enthusiastic and you want to make a change, you need to rely on the impact which organization is doing. And I mean, it gives you other experience maybe rather than financial. Right now it still could be challenged to sustain it. But I do believe it's a voluntary involvement. It's a good start to understand, to gather this first experience and go on with the impact which you want to achieve. We as an organization, we don't have right now any institutional support, so we don't finance us with any money coming from external part. We just finance us with our main work, which is a project operations and educational workshops. And it could be sometimes a challenge to realize the whole ambitions which we have. But this is something condition which I think many non-for-profits have to agree upon, that there is an extra balance between freedom of action which you can do and maybe sometimes a financial restriction which you can face. What is also very important is for us at least, it's to have a strong self-organization. What I learned, we are, as I said, for example, we are up to 20 people right now, but it's important that every person who wants to bring him or herself in the work with us actually understand how they can do it, how they can engage, and understand why they want to join it. I think it's one of the most important condition, which we tried to explain in the very beginning. Why it's like that? Mainly because it's a manpower question. So we don't have enough resources to, as any big organization, to empower, to monitor and to guide everyone who joins here. And I think it's probably, like right now, there is a boom of startups also in the circular economy field, but it's kind of a little bit the same spirit in the startup. If you want to join and you want to contribute with your work, you actually have to be very self-organized to understand where is your place in the organization. And in this case, we are not exception. And on this last point, actually, I put this understanding circular economy principles because, of course, you can always learn it. You can always embrace it through the experience which you do. It's always important to bring this vision if you actually share the same principles. But I put it on the last point here because this is, I think, the previous previous aspects actually much more important if you want to contribute to circular economy or get first experience here. And I want to just briefly highlight the difference between work and volunteering here, because it's something which defines us as an organization. And I think it's important to consider that there is not only, when we talk about circular economy, we should not only focus on the job opportunities in the classic business sector. There is a lot of other activities like in academia or research, which can also contribute to transition in this. And what I, for example, understood that when we talk in the classic work term about work in our organization, or in general, it's always about high expectation on the task fulfillment and results. Because of course, if somebody is paid in this case, you actually you expect particular results on that. However, from the volunteering perspective, you always focus on external impact, and you also consider the relevance for the internal team. So we also think that people who join us as a team members, they actually maybe there will be not chemistry happening after some time of involvement, but it's still the person should leave the organization after particular experience being inspired by the topic. And that's where we also think that volunteering is important because you can also inspire your own team with the activities which you do. However, from volunteering perspective, there is always dilemma between personal interest and institutional development, because I believe that many people who join us, they actually want to unlock their potential. They believe that with the volunteering they can achieve more. However, there's always this restriction between what actually the organization needs and wants, where you always have to balance it and with the volunteering part. However, if you really just go for the work-related activities, it's quite clear in this case. You define a scope for someone who joins, and it's not really a discussion about personal ambitions. It could be, but actually the most important is just to fulfill the task. Also, from the work perspective, it's very much result-oriented activities. However, from the volunteering perspective, it's a lot about understanding common goods. So you really need to understand what is actually the mission, what I'm joining. Do I share the impact which organization is making, or I think there is no impact that organization is making? This is something which is, from the volunteering perspective, I personally quite often challenged by that when my team members, they ask this question, and I also, it pushed me to reconsider every time, do we actually on the right track still? Which, of course, if it's from the work perspective, sometimes sometimes you have limitations to ask that. And that's what just last point here to mention. So if you want to balance between work and volunteering, you need always to balance this institution and common good objectives. So how to keep the organization running, make sure that organization actually operates, but at the same time not to miss this common good, which is actually should be in the core of non-for-profit. And as in our case, it's circular economy. I hope like the team who is also here in NochMall right now sitting next to me, they share the same values at least. That's why they're here still supporting in the closed, already closed NochMall store, department store. Yeah, and on this case, I just want to finish with the last remark, So I do believe, and I kind of share what Frida also said before, that involvement in a circular economy required actually the same competencies as at the normal jobs. So it's about understanding your task, about understanding your commitment and persistence, being active, and understand the value. However, we need still to keep in mind that circular economy is something new, and it brings new values into how economy should operate, which sometimes it needs to be time given to scale it up and to embed it into operation. I think I took too much time, but I'm done.
Hi, Dina. We have one question from the community from Peter, and he asked if are there any circular organizations like this one in Berlin and other German cities too, for example, in Hamburg, Munich, or Cologne?
Very good question. I will pick it up before we open the panel discussion, or maybe, okay, I will pick it up quickly because I think it's a quick answer for me. Right now, I know that there is a initiative starting also in Munich. They are not called Circular Munich, but this initiative starting there because Munich also announced recently they want to become a circular city, coming from their own agenda. We've also last year we've been in short discussion with the circular. I think it's not circular Frankfurt, but circular Hessen. So the whole area there that was also coming from activism and engagement into this. But there is no more than that right now in terms of like the same ambitious and promotion, and that at least I'm not familiar with. Jess, now the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Gina. You had all of your volunteers nodding along with you as you were speaking there on all the difference between work and volunteering. Okay, great. So we are running a little bit over, but we will spend the next 15 minutes having a panel and a breakout room. So for the final part of our event today, we'll have an online panel with the speakers, and we will also divide all of you into breakout rooms. So we will assign everyone into breakout rooms, but you are also able to stay for the online panel discussion if you want to do so. Okay, so we're going to put a link into the chat box now, which is what you need to use for your breakout room. We're going to ask you to discuss what skills are needed to work in the area of circular economy. And you can give examples of these from other sectors, for example, from the food sector or textile. So yeah, we'll put that in the chat box now. So if you guys can open up that link, and then we'll split you into your breakout rooms. But as I said, you are welcome to stay for the panel discussion. And if you have any questions for our speakers, please put them into the chat. So we do have a few questions. The first question is a question to all of you, of our speakers today. So whoever feels free answering this, please go ahead. So the question is, it seems at the moment that the spread of education about the circular economy is only coming from those who are actively engaged in it, but not from traditional education systems. What changes do you think can be made in traditional education systems to prepare for the next generation of specialists to embrace circular economy principles? Anybody? No. So basically, yeah, Esther, sounds like.
I can jump in.
Great.
Yeah, this is something that came up in a project we did in Scotland recently, and how you can engage with the pace of change that's happening with the circular economy with these curriculums that take a long time to influence. And there is no silver bullet necessarily, but it's definitely about trying to look beyond the typical subjects that you might integrate in the circular economy, and try and include transferable thinking and skills around life cycle thinking and holistic thinking into different subject areas. And as well as those traditional forms of learning in the classroom, we think it's really important to try and create greater collaboration between industry and education. Because as I say, the pace of change and the new approaches that are coming into the market and that people need to be prepared to work with when they leave education are constantly changing and being updated. And often educators might not themselves might not be up to date on all of the things that are happening in different sectors. So by having demonstrator repair shops or farms or biorefineries where educators, students, or people currently in work that want to learn some new skills can visit and see some of these circular economy practices happening in real life and in real time, I think it really brings some of the elements of the circular economy that we can try and integrate into curriculum as we go more to life and open up those opportunities to everyone.
Definitely. Does anyone else? Dina, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I also want to add here because I was involved into several courses with universities here in Berlin, where I had the chance to provide insights on the circular economy, and I actually felt still that the changes which needed, so circular economy was actually add-on activity. So it was not a mandatory approach, it was add-on, which you introduced as still like the situation in Berlin, which you introduce as something which people just need to familiarize with themselves. And I felt quite sad about that, because actually the course where I was invited, it was about sustainable business models, and I assumed that when I introduced circular economy, they actually should know that what circular economy is. And for most people, when I asked the question, who have heard about definition of circular economy, actually only 2 out of 50 raised their hands. For me, it was quite shocking actually to see that. It was a master's student. That's why I feel it's really should be kind of a big program from the government in terms of introduction of circular economy into educational agenda. We haven't here in Berlin one high school educational center, Zweisens Kunsthochschule, that managed to bring in the whole semester the course on the circular economy in terms of design and material design. And I think that's you can see the results. So it's only since 2 years that they introduced it. It's a 3 to 6 months course that they introduced there. And you can see already the results. It's actually the innovations which are coming from this mandatory course. They are I mean, not comparable to anything else with how you can learn it. So that's what I think it's important to introduce it into a kind of mandatory explanation what it is. And I hope German government will come to this point soon.
Great. Anybody else?
Yes, I think it's important that we don't have education only for the next generation. I think we also need education for this generation, for everybody. And I think a very good possibility are the German Volkshochschulen, because they are accepted by a lot of people who are not thinking about circular economy. And I know from some projects or one project called ClimaFit, it's a education to climate protection, and it's really a great success story. I think they started in one city, and now they have this education program in around 100 cities in Germany. And so it's a really success story. And so I think because you get older people who are 50 or 60 years, yeah, and then it's very important if they think new about environmental and climate protection and circular economy. So I think it's important not only to look for the students or the children, we have also to look for the people who are now making the politic, and because we don't have time to wait until 10 or 20 years, because we have to change now this system.
Sebastian, something to add?
Yes, from the repair space, I think I also totally agree. Like, education on the political spectrum is super important. Absolutely. I just want to share an example. I think it was a study that has been done that's basically looked at, okay, what were the experience that children had maybe in school? Like, did they try to repair or fix something themselves? And what it basically showed is that people or children, especially also in school, who had that kind of practical experience back in the days, were way more likely than to basically consider even a repair or think about that, right? So compare that to maybe a system where people don't even have that that experience, and they're just used to basically consuming and buying new things. And so I think having the experience also early on and having that success factor, right? So this learning disability to say, okay, I did it myself, I can repair something. I think that's really key.
Great. We are running out of time, but we might. Sophia, was there any questions from anyone in the chat? No. Okay, feel free to put some questions in the chat, but I think we'll ask one more and then we'll wrap it up. So this is another question for all of you, so whoever feels comfortable. The circular economy and the job market within it is something relatively new still. In Germany, you can find information about employment in the area of environmental protection. But one of the biggest challenges we found, though, is that there is no data and no statistics about who is involved in the circular economy. How do you think that data and statistics should be elaborated on or more embedded into the development of the circular economy? How can we count the employment rates in the circular economy?
I can jump in again with the example I shared earlier. Is one way of doing this is utilizing the methodology and the frameworks that we've developed at Circular Economy for measuring the number of circular jobs in a city or in a region. And I'm happy to elaborate another time on how we do that, but it's basically looking at the economic interactions between sectors and linking that to the number and the types of jobs. But one of the challenges we come up against is that the classifications of sectors and the fact that the circular economy is often cross-sectoral or maybe happening in maybe a secondary activity of a company or a secondary activity of a role. Even with this methodology, it's sometimes hard to be sure that we are accounting for all the jobs that are contributing to the circular economy. Because, for example, you may have a manufacturing company that's classified as a manufacturing company, and then their remanufacturing activities are then not picked up by the method. So we've got a framework that we'd love to use and to share with stakeholders, but there are still some challenges in terms of the data and how sectors are classified.
Great, and anybody else?
Yeah, no? Yes, for me the question is, what is a circular economy? If so, our company, the BSR, we have a lot of employees that they collect the waste. So the question is this circular economy if you collect waste, or if you work in an incineration plant, is it circular economy? So that's a question for me. What is really circular economy? Is circular economy only if it's new jobs, or if you have the awareness for circular economy, or it's also circular economy if you sell reused goods, or you work in storage, or so? That's a question for me.
I also wanted to add to that because I know the question. I actually added this question in the preparation because when we were preparing this event, there was indeed the question how you can define, like Frida, exactly the same question I had, how you can define, because I think in Germany what we face still, there is no clear definition about circular economy. So even that it's already part of regulation, which is German word the Kreislaufwirtschaftsgesetz, but there is no, on this type of, on this regulation level, there is no definition actually of new type of circular economy, which is right now takes the second wave. And I have done research on about how like green jobs actually defined here, and mainly from the German term, it's like an Umwelttechnik. That's the only maximum statistics which is right now is available here in Germany. So it's all around environmental specifics, and waste management is part of that, which is included in the statistics. However, there is no steps done further. And I think it's still, unfortunately, remains on the discussion, like what type of sectors or what type of, what type of sectors, because as what you mentioned, it's a cross-sectorial work, actually. It's not now about what's coming in agriculture and then how you can define circular economy approach in agriculture, for example. It's actually cross-sectorial work. And for example, Frida, you showed today a lot of examples who operate in the sales, you need sales employees here in a store, to what extent they actually fulfill the criteria of circular jobs or not. This is all the question which I feel like it's still a long way to go there. Nevertheless, I think it's really important to push this discussion, because this is something which what I also learned from our another project in Haus der Materialisierung here in Berlin, where a lot around second-hand goods or repairs actually is not really covered in the statistics, because according to the waste management processes, everything would actually declared as a waste. It should be disposed, but not necessarily repaired. And this is something which is still gaps and open discussion, how you can actually bring into the statistics and how you can cover it up. Because there are, in Berlin especially, there are so many people who operate in this area, and it's always called like, yeah, it's a kind of a gray area. It's not really clear where they belong to. So it's all have this bubble of gray area, which doesn't have yet defined name.
I can also maybe only shortly add, I think when we looked into the research into the market as well, like who does repair and where is that linked to and how much do they do of it, it's really, really hard to find the data. And the data that I showed was done by a researcher who did a PhD in that area and did it over years. So he basically knows how to interpret this, but it's really hard. And also in general, when I talked about with circular economy and also sometimes also with investors who are new to the space, they're trying to understand what is this, like what's new, what's in it, what's excluded. And sometimes it's really hard. Like just think about the shared economy. If you share shared mobility, for instance, you can say, okay, that's super circular because you share the products and those kind of things. But then on a micro level, you also have to ask, okay, maybe that is circular in itself because you have the cars that are being shared, and well, maybe there's also a spectrum there to what extent that it's circular. But then on the macro level, you can also ask, okay, like, do we actually need that? Or is it just something that has been created on top to the existing needs? So on the macro level, maybe it isn't. So I think that's a really hard discussion and hard topic there to look at. But I think it really comes down to then looking at life cycle assessments, like all those really gathering as much as information and factoring that in. I think we have a longer way to go there.
Thank you. So we are just waiting for everyone to come back from their breakout room. So we'll ask one last quick question to Frida. So Frida, fair prices are a component of circular products, and so are fair salaries and wages. But quite often we have seen people debate that if something is upcycled or secondhand, then it should cost less, which is not how it works. But what does make these products more expensive, and what type of work must be done to sell secondhand products?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. I mean, I think there's a difference between upcycling products and reused goods. If you have reused goods, you have to sell them cheaper than the new products, because if you don't do it, nobody will buy it. But also, if you get from the citizens, they give you reused goods, it's really a lot of work, because we have to collect the used products. Either they are brought to us or we have to pick them up from our recycling depots. We then have to check these things for quality, what can be sold, what is waste. Then we have to sort the things by product groups and then clean them. That's very important because we want to be a clean department store. Maybe we have to reassemble furniture, and then we have to set the prices for the goods, and then the things come to the sales room and have to be presented there. So empty shelves must be refilled quickly, and so it's a lot of work. So despite this work, yeah, they must be cheaper than new goods, because they usually compete with the price of new goods, as I told you. And this is only possible if I get these goods as a gift or if I can buy them very cheaply. Because it's also a discussion that some people say, if we give you reused goods, then you give us money. But it's not possible for us because we have to pay all our employees and the rent. With upcycling products, the situation is different. They are often very expensive because many hours of work are involved in their production. So many customers do not want to accept this unless they are maybe art objects. So, but that's the problem with upcycling products. I know some shops here in Berlin, and things you can buy that they're normally very expensive. So there is a special target group who can buy this. So that's a problem between second hand goods and upcycling products. So upcycling products, they're very expensive, and I think it's okay because if it's really it's a lot of work to do for carpenters and so on, and so it's I think it's okay that they're more expensive.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Okay, so I think everyone is back. Great. So unfortunately, we've reached the end of our event. Thank you so much for joining us and sticking to the end. Let me just put the last screen on. Perfect. So yeah, thank you so much for the speakers as well for all of your insights. And so the last thing that I want to let you all know about is how you can connect and engage with us in the future. So we recently at Circular Berlin launched our community member section. So if you go onto our website, you can find out how to become a community member. We also have a monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to also on our website. And we also have social media. So you can find us on LinkedIn and Facebook to keep up to date with us and to hear about other initiatives going on in Berlin and the city. Yes, so again, thank you so much to our speakers. It was a great event and very insightful. The last thing we're going to ask from all of our participants is if you could take a couple of minutes to just fill out our short survey. We're going to post it in the chat now. It's just a very quick survey of about 6 questions about the event today. So if you could fill that in, that would be great. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to hearing from you all in the future. Feel free to connect with us and to the speakers who will share more of their contact information later. And yes, thank you everyone. Have a great evening and thank you so much.